What are some early warning signs that a situation is about to escalate?
So if I'm talking to somebody and I just met them, I don't know what they're like. So my baseline is now. This is where they are right now. And what we look at are a couple of different things. We look at how they present from their vocal tones, and then we look at their behaviors.
If you had to advise a company in just one golden rule of de-escalation,
Time is your friend. So again, when we're talking about de-escalation, what we're talking about is something that is non-immediate action. In other words, this is not something that we have to go in and we have to stop violence.
hi everyone, today we have a special guest joining us, Tyrone Campbell, author and CEO of the Callbox Training. He's visiting us at the podcast Arte de Dirigir, and in this short episode, Tyrone will talk with us about the de-escalation and communication skills. This is a real challenge today, and many people, companies, and the law enforcement departments are simply not prepared to respond in the right way when the conflict or incident happens. So let's go to the question and welcome again, Tyrone.
Thank you very much. Where do you want to start?
Let's go. So, Tyrone, what is exactly a de escalated method and what types of conflicts or incident it prevent?
So de-escalation is an interesting topic, right? Many people think it's about completely avoiding any sort of altercation, and that's not the case. What we're talking about is an opportunity to calm things down. And what makes de-escalation so amazing is that it can be used across the board. With our company, we teach across 7 different industries, from agencies down to the size of 3 up to 35,000. So these skills can be used just about anywhere. They can be used in the workplace. They can be used with peers. They can even be used at home.
Tyrone, based on your field experience, what are some early warning signs that a situation is about to escalate?
So what we use to indicate early warning signs are what we call a deviation from baseline. So if I'm talking to somebody and I just met them, I don't know what they're like. So my baseline is now. This is where they are right now. And what we look at are a couple of different things. We look at how they present from their vocal tones, and then we look at their behaviors. So if we see those things change for the worse, just to make it very easy, if they change for the worse, then that is escalation. If they change for the better, then you're achieving de-escalation.
And in your opinion, what's the most common mistake people make when trying to de-escalate someone?
So in the book, we talk about what we call our escalation crag, which talks about how escalation and de-escalation occurs. And one of the easiest ways to explain it is you have a person who is doing their normal business, their living life, and all of a sudden something happens, and we call that a trigger. And up from the trigger, we have what's called an accelerant. So the biggest mistake that people make is we tend to focus on the trigger and not focus on the thing that is making the trigger worse. For example, if I encounter you and you're mad because you gambled and you lost $100, well, that's normally what we talk about. Oh, well, you're mad about losing $100. Well, you're not really mad about losing $100. You're mad about the fact that that $100 means that you can't pay your bills, or that $100 means that you told your partner that you weren't going to gamble. So the accelerant is whatever it is that's making things worse. So again, the biggest mistake that we make when we talk about de-escalation is we don't talk about why the person is really, really mad. We talk about the thing that is happening right there.
What is the step-by-step technique to de-escalate in a possible conflict event, including nonverbal communication?
So in our book, we have a process that we call AIR. And this is a very, very simplified process. And the first thing we do is we look at the situation and we make an assessment. We figure out whether or not this is something that is safe to do de-escalation, and then we determine our approach. That's the A. It's 3 simple steps, but the first thing we do is we look at it and we go, is this safe? Okay, how am I going to approach this? The second thing that we do is the I, right? We make an introduction, we identify, and then we introduce ideas. So in the I phase, what I do is I'm going to come up and I'm going to open up the conversation based on what I saw during the A. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen. I'm going to identify what is really going on. Not the trigger, but what is really, really making this person upset. And once we get to that point, now we're going to talk about some ideas. And then the last part is the I, or the R. And the R is where we're going to resolve, refocus, right? What we're going to do is we're going to take that person and we're going to say, okay, we come to an agreement. Let's do it. That's a resolve. We're going to refocus them on what's really important, or we're going to reframe it. How would this look if your mother saw you, right? So if we use that simple technique, the A, the I, and the R, that's how we get there.
If you had to advise a company in just one golden rule of de-escalation, what would it be?
Time is your friend. So again, when we're talking about de-escalation, what we're talking about is something that is non-immediate action. In other words, this is not something that we have to go in and we have to stop violence. We have to stop the destruction of property. We have to stop this right now. It makes us uncomfortable. It makes us uneasy. It's relatively unsafe, but it's not an immediate action thing. So if it's not an immediate action event, what we're going to do is slow it down. So time is our friend. The longer you take, the person that you're dealing with, it allows them to de-escalate themselves. It allows you to come up with ideas. It looks better to people who are watching. If the incident is recorded on film, it just looks better all around. So time is our friend. So what I tell people and tell agencies all the time is slow it down.
Thinking on private companies, this training is for all of departments or for just security departments, HR departments? What kind of person or people, could have this kind of training?
Everybody. We teach this. So in the United States, we have worked with the FBI. We have worked with sheriff departments. We have worked with hospitals. We have worked with power companies. We have worked with HR firms. What we're really talking about is conflict resolution. So any company that, any part of the company that can benefit from the topic of conflict resolution, we can do that. We have a power company where their employees were going out into the field to make repairs and deal with people and explain their bills to them. And people were getting upset. Well, that's de-escalation. It's conflict resolution. They want to know why their power bill is more. So these skills are applicable. We have people that are working construction, and they put up cones and they want cars to go a different way. They want cars to make a detour, and drivers are getting upset. These skills allowed them to go and explain to drivers, this is why I need you to do this. We have HR firms who have instituted policies, and their employees don't want to do them. Well, these skills allow them to explain, because what we're really talking about, again, it's not necessarily the triggering event, it's why people are getting upset, why people are getting frustrated. So anywhere where people experience frustration, we can use these skills.
I was thinking for example, the customer service department. What do you think is the correct way to try or de-escalate? Because I think there is a de-escalate method there, right? It could be in person, one-to-one, or could be in a call.
Absolutely. So here's what I think about when we talk about customer service. Imagine if you're working customer service. Well, one of the large parts of de-escalation is empathy. So if I'm working customer service and you came to see me, think for a second what it would take for a person to be unhappy, for them to actually travel to the place instead of just calling, or they actually have to travel to the place. And in many cases, those people may not have access to transportation. They may have had to take the bus. They may have walked. They may have been on a bicycle. So they have to actually travel to that place. They have to wait in line. And then they get up there, and now they feel like they have to explain this to you, and they have to prove something to you so you can get them what it is that they probably deserve anyway. So if you can understand what it took to even be in that situation, what it took to pick up the phone call and disrupt my day and call you and wait on hold, now if I'm looking at that through the lens of empathy, it makes it very easy to go, I hear you. Let me see what it is that I can do. I hear that you're upset. I'd be upset also. This has to kind of be frustrating. Give me a second. Let me see what it is. Like, I may not be able to do everything, but it looks like you're upset, and it took a lot of time to get here. If you can look at whatever it is through the lens of empathy, you may not understand it, but you can understand that it took certain steps to get to that point. It makes it much easier to go, I got you. And if I'm upset and I feel like you understand me, you're already on the way to de-escalation.
What's happened where the situation really escalate? I mean, what is the next step or the quick step to do in that moment?
So there's another process that we talk about, which is basically a 5-step process. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask somebody to do something. If they don't do it, then we move to the next. There's a certain percentage of people who are going to do it just because you ask. The second thing that we're going to do is I'm going to explain the context. Here is why I need you to do this. Here's why I want you to do this. Okay. From there, what we're going to do is I'm going to present some options. And this is where most of us struggle, is we have a lack of imagination when it comes to options, because the person is doing something that we don't want them to do. And we come in and we say, hey, don't do that. And then they say, well, what should I do? And we say, well, I don't know. I just think that you shouldn't do that. So we have to give them options. Once we go through that, right? We've asked them, we've explained why it's a bad idea to do what they're doing. We've given them some options. The next thing that we're going to do is confirm. So that confirmation is, so you're telling me that we're not going to stop this. This is the route you want to take. And the last step is what you're talking about. The last step is called act. And unless you're part of a police department or security force, you're probably not paid to put yourself in danger, right? Police officers, they have to go towards the danger. If you're not, then you need to do something else. And that could be shelter in place. It could be removing yourself from the area. It could be getting additional resources and people and personnel and security and police to the scene. But unless you're one of those very, very, very few people that are actually paid to actually risk your safety, then you need to get out and you need to call for help.
We're wrapping up this episode. If you are interested in training your team on the de-escalation method, I will leave Tyrone's contact here. And Tyrone, thanks for being here today and sharing your insights with us on the podcast.
Thank you. And I encourage everyone, go to Amazon, look up my name, look up the book. The book is Deliberate De-escalation. Call us.
I will show the link here in the episode. Thank you so much, Tyrone, for joining us.
So if you're interested, the book is Deliberate De-escalation. This is the guidebook. There are 2 different versions. There's the instructor book and the guidebook. If you go to our website at www.callboxtraining.com, you will find a link to the book, you will find a link to the physical copies, and you will find a link to the digital copies. The instructor's manual, the only place that you can get that is through digital. So again, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Kindle, but go to www.callboxtraining.com, buy the book, we'll send it out.